I don't have time for this bullshit.
Ha! Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. All this guy ever does is BS. Anyway, it's time for another edition of BSing with Big Nate.
That was the Reed Effect. Fine here on another edition of BS with Big Nate. Today, we're going to the Great White North, where, of course, let's keep in mind they have summer as well, and we are smack dab in the middle of it. I am joined by Kirk Reed. Kirk, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's funny. Today's the first day patios just opened up here in Toronto. Literally, I think it just opened up yesterday. So this is my first. It's Canada Day here, eh? Hey. So July 1st. So I have a gig at 3:00 here. So yeah, no, I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to perform for the first time in like a year and a half. I think we're a little bit behind you guys as far as opening back up.
I was just going to say that. So when you say patios open up, that's not because of the change in season. That is, in fact, reduction in
a couple months ago. Yeah. And when I say patios actually opened up maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, but live music on patios just opened up, I believe, yesterday. So I got my foot in the door. I'm a full-time musician, so I'll take all the gigs that I can.
That's important. That's actually kind of where this whole BS with Big Nate started. Was one of my favorite bands. They happen to be fairly local to the area. We're driving from our area to Delaware, which is like an 8-hour drive. and they made it about 6 hours in. The show got canceled on them, and I was like, wait, things are about to get real bad here for a while, and music is important. So kind of wanted to bring that awareness. And I'm glad you're finally getting gigs again, because I mean, it's, as you said, full-time musician. That's a rough year.
Oh yeah, no, it's hardcore. We had some help from the government over the past few months just to get through this. We kind of dropped the ball a little bit. Our government, everything was like a little bit slow. So like again, we're a little bit behind you guys in opening back up. But there's definitely hope, and things are finally opening up, like now, like today. And we can't go inside yet. We're not allowed to go indoors.
I, I like that you said we dropped the ball here, as if it seems like every major nation is kind of in that same, yeah, we really just kind of screwed this up. I mean, I know there's no guidebook to handling the pandemic. I mean, particularly here stateside, and I'm pretty sure Canada was affected as well. The last one that we can really remember was what, 1910?
Yeah, the Spanish flu. I know.
Yeah.
I know. This is unprecedented times. It's crazy. It's a bit of a wake-up call in my mind, as far as like, we can't take things for granted, and we got to work together. Like here in Canada, like we sold, I can't remember the details. It was like 15 years ago. We sold the vaccine factory. So we've had to rely on other countries for like the last year and a half to kind of take the lead. So we were number 32 for a while, but everyone's getting vaccinated now. Like I just got my second shot a couple weeks ago. So things are, and it's the numbers are plummeting.
So we didn't do this to talk about all of the bummer stuff. We want to talk about music. I want to talk about that track "Fine Here," kind of your musical background. So we're going to start with "Fine Here." Of course, the Reed Effect, you and your brother Chris, who I mean, I'll let you give the backstory on that.
Yeah, he unfortunately originally, to make a long story short, we were supposed to release this. This album was done recording, and it was getting mixed like a year ago, like over a year, like February. So it was all done. We were going to release at the Horseshoe here. It's a popular club. The Rolling Stones play there and stuff. So we had it all set up for May 1st. Of course, COVID happened, so everything changed. So we postponed it to actually October 16th. We were still in COVID, but our producer, Ted Sedalis, said, we got to get this out there. Like, this thing is killer. Our producer had nothing else to do for months. So he just spent time combing through the tracks. And you hear the tracks, like the production is like through the roof. Like he spent, he was getting so like obsessive about it. I was starting to get worried about the guy. Like, are you sure you make sure you get some sleep, And then he was like, the 30-second bar of the snare on the second beat is not quite there. So he combed through like every single track and made sure everything was pristine. And he said this is the best album that he's ever done. So we got it mastered. It would have been early October. My brother Chris, around that time, he went for a road trip out west to Vancouver in Canada. So he took the whole month off, and he was struggling a bit over the summer. With COVID and everything, he started to get carpal tunnel in his hands, so we couldn't really jam as much. So I was just trying to support and love him as much as I could. And then he said, "Can I take off for the month of September?" I said, "Damn right, man. You need this. Just get away, clear your head, have some fun." And he did. He came back. I saw him. He got back a couple of days before October 9th, and I saw him that night. For the first time since the end of August. And then we listened to the whole album from front to back, fully mastered what you've heard. For the first time, we had to make sure we were happy with everything. We listened to the whole thing front to back, and we were happy. We grabbed a pint to celebrate. And that would have been the first time we heard the whole album together, and it would have been the last. The next time I saw him was 24 hours later, and he wasn't with us anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly sorry for the loss, and I know last year definitely took its toll on a lot of people, and I mean, there are really no words to kind of express that struggle that people are going through that you don't necessarily always know about. and then it's
Right.
amplified by something like that. But that being said, you guys did get to listen to the album together.
Yeah.
As you said, it is a killer mix. It is a killer album. There's a lot there, and that legacy is, that lives on. You've kind of always got that piece of your brother there with you.
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately, like I said, we managed to capture some of his magic and all the backup harmonies. When you listen to the whole album, it's killer, man. He's brilliant, and his songwriting, that there's a brilliance. I would put him in the category of tortured artist a bit. And fortunately, we caught some of his magic on this album, and that's part of the reason why I've never been so driven trying to push an album to honor him, but also to show what he and I worked on. This is his swan song. This is his final professional recording.
Yeah, I think there's no more poetic way to say that. I do kind of want, because you mentioned it was kind of in mastering in that February period. What was the entire process like? First of all, working with your brother, because I've heard, kind of brothers get a bad rap in rock and roll. You've got the
Oasis.
Kinks, you've got Oasis, Black
the Black
Crowes.
Yeah.
So in your case, was there any of that, sibling competition rivalry?
Yeah. We'd be kind of in somewhat in the same category as those guys to a point. Like it's hard to describe. Maybe not quite to the extreme of the Oasis guys. But we were in the band. Chris, I started the band like 7-8 years ago, and Chris wasn't actually the first bassist backup singer, and he joined about 5 years before he passed.
That follows the Oasis, because Noel was in the Inspiral Carpets while Oasis was forming. So I mean, you're right on track.
Yeah, true. And we've had our ups and downs. We wrote together like the whole album, and yeah, the sibling rival. We love it. We were so close too. We were like best friends, Chris and I. He's my brother, best friend. Like we hung out all the time. Went out to all the clubs here, watched our friends' live bands. So when people saw us, one of us, like usually the other one was not too far behind. So we were very close. We had our times, of course, but it never. Any kind of anger or resentment never lasted long at all. And even up until the end, like that night, we had a pint and just to celebrate. And it actually just got mastered that September or early October.
Yeah.
So we wanted to listen to it after Ted spent months and months combing through. But the writing process, and Chris, as beautiful as he is, but he had his moods, and the COVID kind of, as you mentioned, COVID kind of magnifies everything. So he was already kind of having some struggles, some issues, some mental issues before COVID. COVID magnified it. And if I can be honest, there were some addiction issues as well. And my family and I were trying to support him the best we could. But, and the thing is, we were supposed to release it October 16th, the following Friday. See, there were 3 things that were coming up the following week. So I saw him October 9th, the Friday. We were going to release it a week later. I was planning it. I mean, obviously, there were going to be no live shows because COVID was still, we were still in the thick of COVID. But we were going to release, a lot of people were home, so we'd release videos and, get it out to all the social media. Obviously that changed October 10th. But there were 3 things that were coming up that following week. Like I mentioned, he had carpal tunnel. So he had a specialist, an appointment with a specialist set up for that week for surgery. He was going to get surgery. And I said, dude, just play keyboards, just like the Doors, Ray Manzarek played the bass lines. I was like, just do that for now. So we worked on that a little bit. He didn't seem to, he was slowly tapping out, I did not expect to, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So that was one thing. We're supposed to release the album, the specialist for the surgery. And the third thing, his work, he's an engineer. So that was his, and he lost a lot of work, but his boss called him like that week, October 7th, actually, and said there was tons of work coming. He was even offering Chris shares in the company. So there are three things coming up, but I guess
Yeah.
Chris wasn't willing to. He was topping out.
Yeah. So, I mean, you call it Chris's swan song. What about the entire, like kind of looking back, trying to look at the happy things, the finer points.
Oh yeah, and there
What
were many.
stands out to you the most from the entire process of putting the album together?
This actually started. We started pre-production 3 years ago, 2018. Like this has been such a road, man. Um, we started the pre-production. We started recording in the fall of 2018. So in like 3 months was the beginning of the recording. So we recorded for, the drums, the bass. I did the rhythm tracks, and then to make a long story short, I had to let go of our drummer, Brian Fontes. He's a great drummer. He killed it. He was in the band for like 4 years. Great guy. We're still friends, but bands. You saw Spinal
Yeah.
Tap, and shit happens, right? So it is what it is. Anyway, so when we had to part ways. So then it was just Chris and I had to redo one of the songs because once Brian left, I had to redo the whole song because one of the songs he was doing the lyrics and the melody and stuff. And we changed all that. So I had to redo all the bass. Well, Chris did the bass and redo all the guitars and everything. So that kind of put us back right there. And then we had to, revamp everything. Chris was going to do all the backups. So that was another few months. And there were, one song we had to even insert a bridge, Megalomania. We had to insert a bridge. So there was so much craziness with this album. And that lasted up until COVID. It was all done. The recording was all done by the time COVID happened. Oh yeah, and once a fine year. I recorded all the vocals, and what you hear in the vocals now is not the original vocal melody. It was before it was double time. Is it? Saw in the river, na 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 na. It was like that, and Ted and I finished it. I did a good job, and Ted, our producer, was like, "No, you got to redo it." That's why it's halftime now. I mean, that takes a while too, and he was so nitpicky. It's just like any good producer was. So then COVID happened, and I didn't see Ted until Ted just come through, and again there were so many. We had photo shoots. We did a video shoot actually for 1973. There's a video that's already done, and that would have been Chris's final music video. And I don't know if you heard the last track, Preacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our father's a minister. So I did a kind of a rock and roll type sermon kind of thing. So we did a video for that just last July, like not even a year ago, like the end of July. So that would be Chris's final video. It was not music video, the 1973. So there's videos that I'm going to release that later. I have other videos ready to break out, but it was a beautiful process. It was tough sometimes, and Chris could be challenging to get along with. I didn't love him any less, and we still didn't spend any less time together. It's just there was in the last year there was a pessimism that was it was challenging to watch someone that I care about so much to get somewhat abusive at times. Not all the time. He's like the most generous person, very loving, but there were some moods that he was getting into in the last year and a half that was, it wasn't really him, man. It was very difficult to watch. Again, I didn't expect to see when I found him on October 10th, 9:45 p.m. He was supposed to come over that night too. In hindsight, I can see that's kind of where it was heading, because it was a slow, gradual decline in hope, and his mental issues just was getting worse. It was like an illness. It was watching someone, even if it was like a cancer, to watch someone slowly fade away, and it was the worst thing in the world, man. I had to support him as much as I could, and I did right up until the end. But like I said, fortunately, we've had countless gigs together, so many good times. especially while he was in the Reed Effect, which was like for like 5 years.
Yeah.
We went
No-
on the tour and videos, and I'm glad that we were able to catch some of his magic in this album.
Yeah, I think those are some. I mean, they're very tangible pieces that, like I said earlier, kind of leave a legacy and leave that impact. And 1973, very very solid album to me. And you can tell me if I'm wrong. I noticed this. There's a very, it's a very Reed Effect sound, but you can tell, like, I can pull for me, and again, like I said, tell me if I'm wrong. I hear a little bit of Clutch, a little bit of
Nice.
kind of 1980s rock and roll, a little CKY, a little Toadies, and it's just very groovy, and it kind of it hits you. Like, there's not an album out there that's exactly like this.
Right. Yeah. And it is Reed Effect, but yeah, we do. I love Clutch. We're, especially for 1973, of course, we tapped into the classic rock. I'm a big Zeppelin fan, and the early 70s classic rock and the Doors, Floyd, Black Sabbath, all that stuff. But I mean, I wouldn't say we're a classic rock tribute. But then the 90s, Soundgarden, kind of Stone Temple Pilots. So we draw, and that definitely influenced this. We put, with our producer as well, we kind of put, there's even a pop element. It's very groovy, but you can dance to it too, and it's fun. It's not too progressive. Our older albums would be a little bit more in the progressive vein, I would say. Our producer kind of helped us kind of tighten things up, more rock and roll, groove oriented, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
I
I kind of in digging into the research, this album definitely does stand out to me, and I don't know if it's you can't really, like, I'm not going to say it's better or worse because they're not necessarily the same thing. You're absolutely right, and the term I would use is accessible. This to me, this album versus the older stuff, this is something, if I was at a festival and the Reed Effect's on the bill, I'm going to hear just a little bit of that melody, a little bit of that rhythm, and then I'm going to be captivated, and I'm standing there, at the stage, and immediately going to be the Reed Effect's biggest sound. This is an album to me that is kind of one of those. I hate the phrase. It's going to hook everybody.
Right. Cool. Nice. Thanks. And that's kind of the way accessible, would be the word, I think. More palpable for the masses. You don't need to be a musician or like a fan of heavy rock necessarily.
Yeah.
Although, it's heavy in a sense, but it's, like you said, accessible for the masses. And you could be pop. It even has a pop kind of element, fun, hooky melodies, and tight. Some of the songs that we did before go on forever, right? So you'd have to be either a musician or someone that would be somewhat into prog. But this is, definitely more accessible to the masses, and I want to kind of capitalize on that and bring it out to as many people as possible.
Well, I'm excited to see what else you guys kind of have up your sleeves. Of course, you said there's more videos coming. Where does the Reed Effect go from here? Obviously, some Canada Day performing for you.
Yeah, and actually, I'm just performing in my duo partner, and it's actually, I have a new lineup. The thing is, from October 10th till the beginning of November last year, the Reed Effect didn't even exist. I couldn't even. We were in survival mode, my family and I. It was just a complete shock. In hindsight, like I said, I can see. But at that point, I did not expect. I was like, okay, let's just keep some hope. You got some stuff going on. Anyway, and then slowly I was like, no, man, this is Chris's swan song. I need to honor him in the music that we worked so hard on for so long. So I slowly put together a new lineup. With Chris, when Chris was the Chris era, which is really the biggest era, it was a three-piece. So we had drums, Chris singing all backups, and me. And from that, I can't do a three-piece again. The Chris's shoes are far too big, far too special to ever be able to be replaced. So I have a four-piece now. The production, like we're talking about, is huge, and so it also makes sense to have a second guitarist. So that's what I have, and I'm playing with and it's a girl, Carmen. Maybe I'll get her over here if I can she can give a quick hello. So I have her in the band now. So it's her and I just doing an unplugged thing. Again, up here, there's no live venues that are open yet. Just the patios. So I'm looking towards the fall. We did do a live video about a month ago with this new lineup, and it's a really good lineup. Chris also had a band called Fat Mob, and they have some unreleased material that I'm going to help those guys get out there at some point once I milk the hell out of this album. But anyway, the bass player that was in that band, Matt Kilborn, is now the bassist for the Reed Effect. Carmen, Miss Lamont, as we call her, she's the second guitarist, backup vocal now. And Kevin Costa, he's he's filled in for the Reed Effect. He's played with Chris and I many times over the years. He was never a permanent member. He always kind of subbed in when we needed him, but now he's a permanent member. So I have a lineup all set to go. So I'm looking to do some mini tours in the fall, and definitely in next spring as well. And Chris and I are American. We were born and raised in the States, in Connecticut and Providence, Rhode Island. So I want to capitalize on the fact that I have dual citizenship and I have both American and Canadian passports. So I want to get south of the border as soon as I can. I'm hoping for the fall.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a lot to look forward to. And it seems like you're kind of pulling it wasn't Rumpelstiltskin. It was the princess from that who took just regular kind of wool and turned it into gold. So,
right. Okay. Nice.
I'm really excited to see, and I think I'm mixing up my fairy tales. It's been a long time for me. Look, I'm 30 now, and I'm just now having to relearn them for my kids. But the point is, you're kind of finding those silver linings, and everyone go ahead and kind of follow the Reed Effect, because there's a lot to be excited for. 1973 out now. Give it a listen. I highly recommend it. It is kind of good old fashioned rock and roll, but it's 2021, and here we are. Kirk, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and congrats on having a kid a little while ago too.
Thank you. You have a lovely day, Kirk.
Yeah, you too, brother. Take care. Talk soon. Thank you.